Part 176. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1756. Northern Imperial Realm. Bei Minjiun was sitting on the throne, with Lu Ruyan and Sidu Qingchen in front of him. Lu Ruyan didn't recognize Bei Minjiun, but Sidu Qingchen did. Meet the immortal emperor. After Sidu Qingchen saw his situation clearly, he knelt down directly. Young man from the Sidu family, you are quite good and you recognize this emperor. Bei Minjiun said with a smile. The Sidu family has lived in the imperial realm for generations, how can it be that they don't know the immortal emperor? Sidu Qingchen smiled bitterly, but actually there was a lot of resentment in his heart. Yes, I have lived in the imperial realm for generations, but overnight, my family was destroyed. If he hadn't been lucky enough to escape, I'm afraid the last single seedling of the Sidu family would have been gone. Let me ask, where were you at that time? Boy Sidu, the emperor was not in the country at that time, so your family was wiped out. You can't blame me for this. You can only say that the other party had premeditated it. But do you know who the murderer is? Seeing that Bei Minjiun was evasive at first, but after talking about it, his pretty face was solemn, and he couldn't help but feel shuddered, and asked, "Who are you from?" Bei Minjiun said quietly, "It's a person that even this emperor didn't expect, Dongfang Bei." "Impossible." Sidu Qingchen stood up suddenly and said loudly, "That's my future father-in-law. What reason does he have to lie to me?" "Father-in-law?" Bei Minjiun couldn't help but sneered, "I am also an immortal emperor, so why should I lie to you? Do I have any enmity with your Sidu family? It is said in the world that distant relatives are not as good as close neighbors. Your Sidu family has been reproducing in the imperial realm for several generations. If this emperor wants to take action, you will not be able to survive even if you are alone." Sidu Qingchen fell silent immediately. In fact, how could he not have doubts about Dongfang Immortal Emperor's mansion? However, when Bei Minjiun said the name Dongfang Bai, he didn't accept it from the bottom of his heart. But he is just a little golden immortal, what else can he do? If he had not taken precautions, he would not have thought of letting Zuyun and Sun Qiniang accompany him to the eastern immortal realm. It turned out that due to fate, he finally returned to the northern fairyland. I have been teetering for many years, but I still haven't been able to get around it. Seeing that Sidu Qingchen was silent, Bei Minjiun didn't bother to pay attention to him, and turned to look at Lu Ruyan. "Qiuqi." As soon as these words came out, Lu Ruyan's expression suddenly changed. Yes, she is Lu Ruyan's body. But it has long since become the soul of Qiuqi. In other words, Lu Ruyan is Qiuqi. All this was done by Qiulinjian. How did you know it was me?" Qiuqi's expression changed drastically. "I am the immortal emperor, didn't you hear?" Bei Minjiun was like a little girl again, smiling and saying, "But don't be nervous, it was Zuyun who asked me to find you, and I spent a lot of effort to find that desolate place. However, why are you hanging out with Sidu Qingchen?" Qiuqi was about to speak, but suddenly he remembered his own problems, so he closed his mouth and remained silent. She was already very happy when she knew it was Zuyun who was looking for her. At this time, even if Bei Minjiun got angry and killed her because of this, she was willing to do so. From the moment she became conscious, she was a carefree little fox. "I thought that by following Tang Liwen to the fairy world, I could wait for Zuyun to ascend to the fairy world, but in the end, I was immediately found by Qiulinjian. First, he was raised by his side. Until Yayuan came with Lu Ruyan. Qiulinjian dismissed Yayuan, directly erasing Lu Ruyan's fairy soul, and turned Qiuqi into Lu Ruyan. Qiulinjian seemed to know that she was obsessed and wanted to see Zuyun again, so he threatened her that if she revealed her identity as Qiuqi, she would never be able to see Zuyun again. In this way, Qiu Qi slowly integrated Lu Ruyan's memory, got used to Lu Ruyan's body, and adapted to getting along with Ye Yuan. Why, are you afraid that Qiu Linjian will hear you? Bei Minjiun was worthy of being the immortal emperor. She reached out and found a jade talisman in her hand. Above, white clouds flowed and immortal power lingered, which was obviously restrained by her. Qiu Qi was surprised and happy, "Thank you, immortal emperor." Then, she collapsed on the ground and cried like a tearful person. Although she has achieved the body of an immortal, she even has the realm of a golden immortal. But following Qiu Linjian, you can't do this or do that. It's no different from a puppet. How many times had she wanted to commit suicide, but she couldn't do it? Every move is under Qiu Linjian's control. Today she could only try her best to tell Sidu Qingchen to leave. But they didn't expect that Bei Minjiun came and took them all away. While I was searching for you, I discovered that Qiu Linjian might be hiding here. In order not to alert others, I waited until she left before taking action. Bei Minjiun said with a smile, "Now that I have sealed the demon consciousness that belongs to Qiu Linjian, unless she comes to this emperor's fairy palace, there is no way she can discover your whereabouts." Sidu Qingchen also thought of the key point. Seem. Bei Minjiun didn't come here specifically to save him. Instead, at Zhu Yun's request, he was looking for Lu Ruyan, who was actually Qiu Qi. Then I found him and brought him back. For a moment, a huge feeling of loss filled my whole body. A boy from the Sidu family, Bei Minjiun squinted her eyes and formed two lines, as if she was waiting to see such embarrassment. "Immortal Emperor, please speak." Sidu Qingchen's face was full of bitterness. He has believed what Bei Minjiun said. Because this attitude has shown that the Sidu family is not important. It's all because the Sidu family is self-righteous. So, what reason does Bei Minjiun have to harm their Sidu family? Of course, Bei Minjiun said Dongfang Bai, and there is a great possibility. Dongfang Bai wants to find something from your Sidu family. This emperor is not interested in that thing, but it may be useful to Zhu Yun. This emperor wants to make a deal with you, how about it? What deal? Sidu Qingchen was stunned. Give your things to Zhu Yun, and this emperor will protect you. As long as this emperor is in power, he will make you worry-free for the rest of your life. How about it? Immortal Emperor, what you are talking about, is the heirloom of our Sidu family. Sidu Qingchen knew that it might be because of this heirloom. But the problem is, if it is really useful, wouldn't Bei Minjiun covet it? Dongfang Bai, who is also an immortal emperor, wants it. Yes, it's your heirloom, Bei Minjiun said with a smile. I didn't remember it at first, but then I remembered it. This is just right, didn't I tell you? Such words also really show that his heirloom is useless to Bei Minjiun. Sidu Qingchen smiled bitterly. It's just a broken bead, it looks angry, and it's too hard to put on the body. It's useless to you, but it's useful to Dongfang Bai. Of course, it may be more useful to Zhu Yun. I think I guessed something. Bei Minjiun touched his smooth chin, but he couldn't help thinking of Zhu Yun in his heart. I don't know how he is doing in the Mayanbei Immortal Kingdom now. However, since he didn't use the Immortal Blood Order, it means that he hasn't encountered a strong enemy yet. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1757. Zhu Yun was indeed fine at this time. On the contrary, he was living very well. After standing on the trial platform for a long time, he had a new understanding of the world of the universe. Of course, it had nothing to do with time and space. Rather, he had a different idea about the intricate power of this world. If the holy demons join in, they will have more holy demon power when they practice here. It's not a problem to have one more. Then, what if other demons are added? At this time, there are already many kinds of power in the world of the universe. but they can exist safely and without any conflict. As the water in the dragon transformation pool gradually stabilized, pure dragon power was also dispersed into the air. In addition, this dragon power was mixed with a lot of destiny power. As for the power of the zodiac, it was a kind of supply of the human race in the world of the universe to the zodiac, and it would not be dispersed. Just like his power of faith. Either it would be temporarily stored in his golden body, or it would rush directly into Zuyun's body. Anyway, he will not return to these human beings. After flying away from the valley, Zuyun returned to the front of the immortal mansion. Master, Aunt Tang is comprehending the situation in the immortal mansion, please do not disturb her. Before Zuyun could visit the immortal mansion, the voice of the dragon stone sounded in his mind. Zuyun was delighted and nodded repeatedly, but he seemed to remember something and said, "Did she say anything?" "She just said that you fell into a misunderstanding." The dragon stone may not have communicated much with Tang Liwen, and he did not dare to reveal to Zuyun the exact relationship between the laws of time and space. "Oh? What misunderstanding? Or is it because you is space and Zhou is time?" Zuyun did have doubts about this, but he had no idea where to start. Even because of this relationship, he thought of the chaos fist of the five elements Xianxia, which almost misled him. However, he also learned from the immortals in the wild of the Cotton North immortal country who were responsible for refining the immortal snow that the five elements Xianxia would indeed refine the immortals who were not good at work into the five spirits immortal pill for him to take. I don't know what Lin Zhenghong will do to him after he is taken to Purgatory Mountain. Will he be thrown into the Purgatory volcano to be tortured like Lin Fei did to Bai Minjiun? Zuyun shook his head and put away his thoughts, and then heard the dragon stone said, and Tang said, "Don't worry about you, don't worry about Zhou. Time is time, space is space, why bother? It's just a name." The speaker is unintentional, but the listener is intentional. These seemingly useless words made Zuyun's brain bang, as if it exploded. He vaguely caught a glimmer of inspiration in this explosion. But his mind was full of what Lin Zhenghong had said to him. At that time, Zuyun told Lin Zhenghong that he was not Ye Xian, not Ye Yang's nephew. Lin Zhenghong said that the name was just a name, and it didn't matter what it was called. So, I don't care what time is called, and I don't care what space is called. Time is time, and space is space. I just comprehend according to what I know, isn't it? Zuyun suddenly realized that Tang Liwen was right. Perhaps, she also said this, so she started to comprehend the immortal palace. It's just right, I can comprehend this world of the universe. Zuyun took a deep breath and sat down cross-legged, but suddenly, he waved his hand. The world tree and the world mountain took human form and appeared in front of him at the same time. Master. The two were connected to the world, and Zuyun, as the master of the world, could naturally feel that Zuyun was extremely solemn at this time. They bowed slightly and waited for battle. I want to comprehend the great way of the immortal palace and the world of the universe. Perhaps this is the solution to integrate the immortal palace into the world of the universe. I don't know how long it will take, I can only say that, no one is allowed to come and disturb. The world tree and the world mountain said together, "Don't worry, leave it to us." Zuyun nodded, and then closed his eyes tightly. The name doesn't matter. No matter what he is called. He is still him. I am still me. Time is still time. Space is still space. And I have never been able to make a new change in the universe world, because I have always thought that the universe world is based on the way of space. Space and time have never been separated. So in essence, what exists is the law of time and space. Zuyun reviewed everything he understood and began to comprehend it layer by layer. He can control the time of the universe world at will. However, he has never directly intervened in the expansion of the space inside. So, Zhou is time. But this is not important. I just need to know that the universe world is a world refined based on the law of time. But it is not important either. Because time and space can never exist separately. Time is meaningful only when there is space. Space exists only when there is time. So, the universe world and the great Xianfu, they should have been one. It may be in a breath. It may also be countless years. Suddenly, there was a violent vibration in front of him. Zuyun opened his eyes suddenly. The immortal palace was shaking. No. The universe was also shaking. No. His whole body was shaking. Boom. 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 The whole world, all living things were shaking. No, that's not right. This is the long river of time that has been shaking since the emergence of the universe. In front of Zuyun, a small black dot first appeared. Then, the black dot slowly grew larger, and then turned into a sphere. From the sphere, it turned into a continent that seemed to float in the void. Zuyun recognized it. The void is chaos. Although it can't be felt. But the free chaotic force is particularly conspicuous. He is too familiar with it. He started to cultivate this power since the Jindan stage. Until he became an immortal, the chaotic force had never changed. Mountains, rivers, and hills gradually appeared on the continent. But it lacked vitality. But in the blink of an eye, spiritual medicines and monsters fell from the sky. I think this is what Nangang Tianli did after refining a space, and then placed living beings in it. Zuyun suddenly figured it out. This is the evolution of the universe world since the successful refining. Time flows. Zuyun has been watching the immortal palace falling like a fairy from the sky. Until his figure suddenly stood here. The figure in time suddenly merged with himself. He shook his mind and looked at the immortal palace again. The feeling of being blocked was gone. Ha ha ha. He laughed and the immortal power on his body flowed. With every step, the immortal power on his body will become more intense. Until, he stepped into the gate of the immortal palace. The laws on his body flowed. Stars, 5 elements, 4 images, 2 yin and yang. Zuyun has broken through the golden immortal. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1758. Zuyun thought that the change was nothing more than that. He also wanted to go in and see Tang Liwen's condition. But I never thought about it. When he entered the immortal mansion, there was another change in the sky. Boom. 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 Loud noises came from 4 directions. Zuyun turned around in fear, he had no idea what was happening. And the creatures in the entire universe also looked up at the sky at the same time. It turned out to be the phantom of an ancient divine beast. The shadows seen in the 4 directions of southeast, northwest, and northwest are also different. Blue dragon and white tiger, Suzaku Suanwuo. Zuyun is in the center of the universe and can see the phantoms of the beasts from all directions. Originally, with the 28 constellations, Zuyun never thought that the world of the universe would have any relationship with the 4 divine beasts. Because in itself, the 28 constellations are also related to the 4 symbols law. Thinking back again, the chaos lotus in his body at that time, with the 28 chaos lotus hearts on it, rushed into the great universe world, and finally allowed him to slow down the time of the great universe world easily. This also caused Zuyun to stop thinking about it. In fact, in today's universe world, time flows very slowly. Far slower than normal fairy time. The reason is that there are 4 elephants guarding it. But now, the immortal mansion and the great universe world are completely integrated. Then, with the flow of time, conflicts naturally arise. The shadow persists for a long time, as if it has come to life and appears vividly. Zuyun looked at the sky. Suddenly he grinned. The four images are actually space, and the universe is time. The reason why Nangang Tianli was unable to successfully refine a world was actually because he made a mistake. He regarded the universe as time and the universe as space. The flow rate of time, it also requires the stability of space. So the ancient four-dimensional beasts came to slow down the flow of time in the universe and stabilize the space. Now that time has returned to normal, naturally, the four mythical beasts will also change. Zuyun realized some of the great ways of time and space. It's just that it hasn't been completed yet, and that's all I can think of. But for now, it's completely enough. Just wait until this universe world. No, it shouldn't be called the great universe world now. In order to distinguish before. Now it is not necessary. So, what is called good? Zuyun subconsciously patted his chest and was stunned. Originally, the Diwu glass mirror that was almost completely embedded in the left chest, like a heart mirror, actually made a crisp sound. A thought suddenly appeared in his mind, and a complete glass mirror appeared in his hand. Positive, negative. No matter which side, he can shine on himself. Is this the complete cosmic glazed mirror? But am I still in this world? Zuyun was puzzled. But soon, he shook this thought away and chuckled, is it the cosmic glazed mirror? Then call this brand new world the glazed world. As soon as he finished speaking, the cosmic glazed mirror clattered, glowing with colorful glazed light. The light soared into the sky, went straight into the nine heavens, and finally disappeared. Zuyun retracted his gaze and looked at Liuli mirror again, but he found that Liuli mirror had a completely new change. Like. The word universe is completely disconnected. This mirror seems to have become my natal magic weapon. Zuyun was surprised for a while. Originally, if he wanted to freely enter and exit the glazed world, he had to pass through the cosmic glazed mirror. Starting from a fragment, becoming complete, and then the universe is separated. Now, the front and back are merged together, but they are separated from the Liuli world. So, this has really become my portable world, and this glazed mirror has become my destiny artifact. This is an unexpected gain. Zuyun has never owned a natal magic weapon since the lower world. In the fairy world, he cannot have a natal magic weapon, but because of this glazed mirror. He chuckled, and his heart moved again, and the glass mirror was pressed against his chest. However, it is not completely embedded like before, but truly like a breast shield. After doing this, Zuyun looked at Tang Liwen. She has woken up. He also looked at Zuyun with bright eyes. You've already finished it before I can figure it out. It seems that your talent is not weaker than mine based on the laws of time and space. Tang Liwen could tell at a glance how extraordinary this world was. Originally, she was in the immortal mansion and could only feel the space laws in the immortal mansion. But at this time, she completely felt the breath of the outside world. In other words, Zuyun successfully connected the immortal mansion and the world. From now on, this is the world. Can you choose a name? Tang Liwen's eyes glowed, and she looked at the scene in all directions. From time to time, the power of law was flowing, and she couldn't help but ask curiously. Take it, I call it, glazed world. Luli. Tang Liwen looked up subconsciously. She saw colorful glass light. That's right, Tang Liwen smiled slightly and said, next, we only need to let the laws of this glazed world be naturally perfected. Then, by then, this world will be completely complete. Maybe, I can once again attain enlightenment and become an immortal. Hearing this, Zuyun was also stunned and said strangely, and Tang, aren't you already an immortal? I remember that when you were in the mine, you were already in a true fairyland. It's a true fairyland, Tang Liwen said with languid eyes. However,
Once I took Yanhun powder, my longevity was damaged, and secondly, the fairy land was not stable. Now, I am staying in this glazed world. After a long time, I have naturally become tainted with the way of heaven. Therefore, I am no longer a human being, nor an immortal. However, as long as I am recognized by this world, I will naturally achieve enlightenment. Zuyun was confused when he heard this. But I also know that this must be related to the fact that she stepped directly from the nascent soul stage to the immortal stage, bathed in the fairy light, and directly became an immortal. Moreover, seeing Zuyun remain silent, Tang Liwen continued, "Have you noticed any difference between your glazed world and Huangming seeing?" "Different? I haven't thought about it." Zuyun also secretly thought that many of the creatures here were actually transferred from the Yellow Star. Moreover, both Jixian Mountain and Qingping Immortal Kingdom were also transferred here from Huangming seeing. Even part of the Kunlun Mountains came here together with the Qingping Immortal Kingdom. The biggest difference is that the power you have here is purer. Tang Liwen pointed to the side of World Mountain, where there were many creatures. People, demons, beasts. What's the meaning? Zuyun vaguely guessed what Tang Liwen was going to say, but he was not sure. Tang Liwen smiled slightly and said, "That's it." But before he finished speaking, the glazed light in the sky suddenly changed. Warm reminder, if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will handle it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1759. If it were just a change in light, it would naturally not attract their attention. However, there was a loud noise. They looked up quickly. I saw that it was originally floating on the 9 heavens, constantly entangled with colorful lights, and suddenly, a rainbow bridge was formed. It's like a substance, as if even a person can walk on it. At this moment, what Zuyun was thinking about was that demonic moon when he was in the secret realm of Ascended Immortal. Lin Yu used her supreme magical power to build a covered bridge between the ground and the demon moon. But what's going on with his colorful rainbow bridge? I can't understand these laws, but I think this 7-colored glass light can form an array. Tang Liwen suddenly spoke, causing Zuyun to look over suddenly. "Aunt Tang, do you see anything?" Tang Liwen's reaction made Zuyun a little disappointed. She shook her head and said, "I can't see anything, it's just an intuition. If you can master the 7-colored glazed light, maybe there will be something different in your world, the same change." Tang Liwen also frowned, thinking about something. But after all, her realm is not high, and she is restricted by innate conditions and cannot comprehend it from above. How about going up and taking a look? Such an idea naturally came to Zuyun's mind. This is his glazed world after all. Wait, glazed world, glazed light. Zuyun suddenly remembered something, and with a thought in his mind, the natal fairy mirror flew out of his arms. The colorful glazed light flew out from the fairy mirror. So this. As soon as the fairy mirror came out, the extending Hong bridge seemed to have suddenly found its direction, and the other end extended straight towards Zuyun. In Zuyun's shocked eyes, this end of the Hong Chiao was connected to the front of the fairy mirror. Zuyun subconsciously reached out and touched the Hong Chiao. It seems illusory, but it is real. People can walk up and reach the sky. Zuyun retracted his gaze and looked at the fairy mirror again. That's going to be the case on the front side, but what if I put the tail side up? With a thought in his heart, Zuyun turned the fairy mirror over. Boom! There was a loud noise in the sky. The entire Hongqiao suddenly reversed direction, and the other end, which extended to an unknown location, quickly headed towards the opposite side of the fairy mirror. After a few breaths, the other end came and was connected to the opposite side of the fairy mirror. It can be said to be exactly the same scene as before. Zuyun stared blankly, not knowing what the meaning of this was. But Tang Liwen exclaimed, "I know." Zuyun turned around in surprise, "And Tang, what do you know?" 4 words. Tang Liwen smiled sweetly, "When things go to extremes, they must be reversed." Everything must be reversed at its extreme. Does it have anything to do with this? Zuyun was a little confused. It can only be understood, not expressed in words. If you ask me to explain it, I can't explain it. Tang Liwen shook her head, but as if remembering something, she took out a piece of paper from her arms. On it, there is a picture of seeing the yin and yang chaotic circle at the last moment of Huang seeing. And Tang, what do you mean? Tang Liwen smiled and gave the paper to Zuyun, and said, "I want to realize it too. I'll give you this picture. You can also realize it when you have time. I have an intuition that when you understand this yin and yang chaotic circle, when the time comes, not only will this world of colored glaze be accomplished, but your realm will also be accomplished." Easy to say, easy to leave. Tang Liwen flew up without saying too many words, and soon left Zuyun's sight. He was the only one holding the fairy mirror in one hand and holding the paper in the other. His eyes wandered and he stood blankly for a long time. It wasn't until the rainbow bridge turned into a stream of light again, dissipated into streaks of gray-white spiritual power, and finally disappeared that Zuyun finally reacted. This colorful light is actually spiritual power, not immortal power. Just as he was wondering, he slapped his forehead again. Nonsense, even if this world is completed, it will only be a lower realm. In the lower realm, naturally there can only be spiritual power. And if I use fairy power, it does seem to have some influence. Zuyun thought for a moment and then smiled. From now on in this world, use less fairy power and more original power. The colorful glazed light seemed to remind him. Finally, it turned into spiritual power and dissipated, much like the chaotic power he first cultivated. I probably understand, but for now, I'd better stabilize my realm first. After all, I just arrived at Deluo Xianxia. Moreover, I can leave chaos now. He rubbed the fairy mirror in his hand and stuffed it back into his arms. Sitting cross-legged in the cave, Zuyun could not calm down. He merged the immortal palace and the world into the glazed world. But one question has been ignored. Immortal Mansion. Is it still the original Immortal Mansion? In the Immortal Mansion, the immortal power is still flowing. And just before, he had thought about not using his immortal power in the Liuli world. Then how can I restore the 5 elements immortal power in the future? Use the original power of this world? Just when Zuyun was frowning, the dragon suppressing stone suddenly turned into a human form and appeared in front of him. "Yes, Master, from now on your immortal power can be completely provided by this world." The old god of dragon suppressing stone is here, looking serious, but there is a hint of surprise in his eyes. Zuyun understood, nodded, and said, "Do you mean that in the future, you can extract the original power and turn it into my chaos immortal power?" "That's pretty much what it means," Zhenlongshi said with a smile. "However, it doesn't need to be so complicated. As long as this immortal mansion is still in the world of the universe, then I can also help the master bring the original power into this immortal mansion. Refined into chaos immortal power. You can? Does that mean I don't have to practice anymore?" Zuyun also smiled. He had extracted the original power of the universe for his own use before, but it was always not as easy as the chaos immortal power. Besides, there is now a chaos lotus in his danshan. If you keep using the chaos immortal power, you don't know what kind of changes this chaos lotus will have next. Speaking of this, Zuyun couldn't help but look inwards at his own body. When he saw chaos lotus again, he was stunned again. I saw that the chaos lotus that had grown into bloom now had something like a disc in the middle of the lotus. The colors are intertwined with black and white, which is particularly eye-catching. This is. Zuyun was stunned for a moment, then changed his angle and looked down from above the Chaos Lotus. Instantly, he took a breath of cold air. Returning his consciousness to his immortal body, Zuyun suddenly lowered his head and looked at the paper in his hand. Exactly the same. In the center of the chaotic lotus, a yin and yang chaotic circle was born. Why is there such a change? Zuyun couldn't help but hold his breath. Is it because of me that I merged the laws of time and space into the laws of space and time? Does the combination of two into one coincide with the law of two rituals? For a long time, Zuyun took a deep breath, and then looked inside his body again. But this time, Chaos Lotus has undergone some changes. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1760. The originally motionless chaotic circle of yin and yang began to rotate at this time. Black and white, as it turned faster and faster, it also turned into gray and white. The exact same color as chaos immortal power. It seems that after I understand so many laws, I will eventually lead to the same path. Zuyun withdrew his mind again and looked into the distance. Chaos Avenue. Heaving a sigh of relief, Zuyun took out the fairy mirror again. Looking again at this time, the fairy mirror has also changed. He knew that it was because he had a deeper understanding of the laws of chaos that he could see that this fairy mirror was actually surrounded by laws. On the positive side, it is the law of time. On the contrary, it is the law of space. Zuyun turned the fairy mirror over, and then his fairy consciousness penetrated it. There is a void inside. However, this void is not chaos, nor does it belong to any interface. This is completely Zuyun's, an exclusive space. He contacted his storage fairy ring with his fairy consciousness. With just one thought, all the things in the fairy ring were taken out, and then they flew into the reverse mirror automatically without wind. Then this side is equivalent to a time artifact. Zuyun felt happy and turned the mirror immortal around again. Looking at the power of laws lingering above, Zuyun knew that it was all about time. Ignoring the surprise of the dragon suppressing stone, he easily walked out of the immortal mansion, and then picked up a random stone on the world mountain. Then, he gently shook the fairy mirror. The power of the law of time was shaken towards the stone. But in a breath, Zuyun saw this ordinary stone, which had gone through years of erosion. Until, this stone finally turned into a pile of dust. Is this, the terrifying part of the power of time? Zuyun was surprised and happy. He had the experience of changing the flow of time. But that only scratches the surface. By rotating the entire universe, the speed of the rotation of the sun and the moon is changed, thereby causing a difference in time. It seems to be for the whole world, but in fact, there is still a big difference. Moreover, Zuyun at that time almost gave his all. If what he wants to deal with is a person, it is completely impossible for the other person to be harmed by the law of time. But now, Zuyun has this ability. Only. The ability is still not enough. This is the only thing I can use at the moment. I still need to study this fairy mirror more. Moreover, due to the laws of space, it is impossible for this fairy mirror to be used as my storage fairy, right? The cosmic glazed mirror was made from the supreme immortal materials that Nangang Tianli had collected for countless years. Now it has finally become a truly top-notch immortal weapon, but how to maximize its effectiveness still needs Zuyun to figure it out on his own. So, I still have to try my luck in the fairy world. After all, my experience in the fairy world is still not enough. Let's leave chaos first. Zuyun returned to the immortal mansion and said to the Zhenlong stone, "It's time for me to leave." "Huh? Master, those old friends of yours are missing." Zhenlongshi asked curiously. "I almost forgot about them." Zuyun patted his forehead and said, "By the way, how much control can you have over this glazed world now?" Control? No, Xianxia shook his head and said, I can only control the immortal mansion. In addition, I can also transform the original power, or various powers floating in this world, into chaos immortal power. There's nothing I can do to help. As he spoke, he spread his hands. Zuyun smiled and said, it seems that the old trees and mountains still dominate this world. Isn't this good? Xianxia stretched and said, but master, if I get to know you better, I can wander around in this world. You. Zuyun smiled helplessly, as long as you can come back at any time, that's fine. Okay. Xianxia suddenly smiled. Zuyun waved goodbye, but he still remembered to meet everyone. A flurry of greetings took him 3 days and 3 nights. Nowadays, the speed of time in the Liuli world is exactly the same as that in the immortal world. Unless Zuyun deliberately changes, then this world will not change in the future. Because after the Liuli world is completely formed, it will disappear from the chaos and finally appear in the fairy world. As for where in the fairy world, that is unknown. Maybe it will be in the fairy land of all directions. It may also be in the Sea of Chaos Stars, or in the Mayan Bay fairy land. You should practice hard, and in this world, you will be able to ascend in no time. Before leaving, Zuyun left them a piece of good news. Xiaozu, to be honest, we don't want to ascend yet. The big dog shook his round head. Ergo said anxiously, me too. Everyone laughed. For a long time. I wish Yun will stand in the chaos. He flew out directly from the Liuli world. Looking back, I can see that the blue sky is very different from the one I saw before. The entire world ball is filled with glazed light that flows and disappears in a flash from time to time. Zuyun couldn't capture it at all without using the divine eye technique. Is it possible that this glazed light will eventually become the way of heaven? Zuyun smiled and shook his head. Everything that happened next was to see the changes in Liuli world itself. Everything conforms to the rules, and the way of heaven is its own. I don't know what happened to Qiniang. Return to Mayan Bay Fairyland and find her first. Zuyun withdrew his gaze and left decisively. He will come back to chaos. Because the source of Xianwuzong is still there. Therefore, Zuyun kept Ximan Yuenking's bracelet. But at this time, he threw the bracelet into the empty space of the fairy mirror. No matter how strong Ximan Yuenqing is, he can no longer sense the position of the bracelet. The gain of this trip is not that Zuyun broke through to the golden immortal. But he has a better understanding of chaos. When he appeared in chaos again, Zuyun's strength was not suppressed, and he could easily shuttle through the void. What's more, he can identify the direction here. It took half a month. Zuyun saw the entrance that suddenly appeared in chaos again. It was also the exit he left. It can be vaguely seen that several Lucian immortals walked back and forth outside. Hee, you are so obedient. I wonder how strong I am now. Zuyun flicked his fairy mirror and then stuffed it back into his arms. But just when he was about to swagger around the exit, there was a commotion over there. Is Luo Tianxiangxian also qualified to stop me? A familiar voice sounded, and Zuyun's face was stunned. The next moment, the voice came again. Time, Long River. Lian Zhenxianjun. The opponent's strength was so strong that the power of the law of time driven by him was so strong that even Zuyun, who was in the chaos, could feel it. The next moment, Lian Zhenxianjun was suddenly in the chaos. The moment he saw Zuyun, Lian Zhenxianjun was also stunned, but he was an immortal after all. Even with an incomplete body, his reaction was better than Zuyun. Time is still. He waved the immortal weapon in his hand, and a stream of immortal power with the law of time rushed towards him. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment.
Started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1761. Zhu Yun's reaction was ultimately not as good as that of immortal Lord Lianzhen. This immortal power quickly wrapped around Zhu Yun. Instantly, Zhu Yun felt as if his surroundings had stopped. He clearly felt that his body was not restricted in any way, but he was completely unable to move. And the voice of immortal Lord Lianzhen also sounded beside him. He couldn't see how the person stood before him. I didn't expect it to be such a coincidence. If you were still hiding in the chaos, it would be really difficult for me to find you. Immortal Lord Lianzhen laughed sarcastically, and as he spoke, the still time seemed to slowly begin to flow. This allowed Zhu Yun to think and use his chaotic power. Of course, he could not escape the immortal knowledge of immortal Lord Lianzhen in this scene. But Zhu Yun was not without the ability to fight back. If immortal Lord Lianzhen is outside the chaos, he really has no choice. But in chaos, anyone's realm will be suppressed. Zhu Yun, if it were another law, maybe you could do it. But this is the law of time, you. Before immortal Lianzhen finished speaking, his expression suddenly changed. Admittedly, Zhu Yun's movements were very slow. But thoughts only take a moment. Under his immortal knowledge, the fairy mirror suddenly appeared in his hand. The law of time? I can do it too. Looking at the fairy mirror that suddenly appeared in Zhu Yun's hand, the power of the law of time flowing on it immediately conflicted with the law entangled in Zhu Yun's body. Time entangled and collided, and sharp and weird sounds suddenly came out. At the same time, under the completely different flow speeds, the chaotic space here was actually distorted. Zhu Yun knew that this was the space shock caused by the law of time. As soon as his body could move, he immediately used the chaos escape technique, and his figure immediately disappeared in place. You can actually escape my law of time. Immortal Lord Lianzhen exclaimed. When he saw Zhu Yun again, he found that he was already several miles away. At the same time, he had already protected the fairy mirror on his chest. The power of the law of time belonging to the fairy mirror constantly surrounds Zhu Yun, forming a layer of protection. I don't believe it. You, a Xianxian, can withstand the law of time that I specialize in. Immortal Lord Lianzhen's face was distorted. He took out his own fairy mirror, and kept holding the fairy formula in his hand. The fairy power rushed towards Zhu Yun with a dream-like color. Zhu Yun was not afraid and said coldly, if this were outside the chaos, I would have no choice but to run away. But in the chaos, what can I, the great Xianxian, do? After that, instead of running away, he punched out with both fists. The four directions divine beast fist. The blue dragon in the left fist, the white tiger in the right fist. Dragon tiger jumped out, roaring and rushing towards immortal Lord Lianzhen. You actually know the laws of space. The four directions divine beast fist belongs to the four symbols law. But no matter what the rules are, they are all more or less connected. Zhu Yun's four directions divine beast fist gave him a new understanding due to the fusion of the glazed world. These two fists naturally brought the power of space. Qinglong and Beihu leaped forward, their shadows flashed and appeared, and in the blink of an eye they were in front of immortal Lord Lianzhen. Qinglong opened his huge mouth, and White Tiger raised his front paws and slapped it down. Time stands still. How dare immortal Lianzhen attack Zhu Yun himself? He hurriedly raised the time immortal artifact in his hand. He is only a semi-immortal, so if he is hit, he may be seriously injured. I saw that his immortal weapon was filled with immortal power. As soon as Qinglong and White Tiger came into contact, they stopped suddenly, like two sculptures. Humph! Zhu Yun snorted coldly and punched twice again. Suzaku fist. Suanwu fist. It's exactly the same boxing technique as before, except that the phantoms of the ancient beasts are replaced by Suanwu and Suzaku. Zhu Yun, I admit that you are very strong, but the same moves are useless to me. Immortal Lord Lianzhen also quickly thought of countermeasures. He also had a new understanding of Zhu Yun's two punches again. This punch not only contains the law of space, but also the law of four images. This child cannot be kept. And that fairy mirror, could it be the day-glazed mirror? But it looks different from before. Immortal Lord Lianzhen continued to use his time weapon, thinking of using time to stop Zhu Yun's two punches. But how did he know that Zhu Yun had never thought of using the Sifang Divine Beast Fist as a killing move? For this kind of soul, the best method is the Immortal Soul Hammer. This is also a top-level immortal weapon, which can completely deal with Immortal Lord Lianzhen. He just fired these two punches and used the Chaos Escape technique again. The figure flashed away, which made Immortal Lord Lianzhen think that Zhu Yun wanted to go deep into the chaos and escape from here. After all, I said before that if he hides in chaos, there is really nothing he can do. He raised his time immortal weapon casually, intending to stop the shadows of Suzaku and Suanwu before pursuing Zhu Yun. Unexpectedly, the next moment, a golden light appeared out of thin air and hit him on the head. Immortal Lord Lianzhen, look at the quality of my immortal soul hammer. Made of golden light, Immortal Lord Lianzhen felt a sense of fear coming from the bottom of his immortal soul. You can actually control the immortal soul hammer. He screamed and could only watch the immortal soul hammer slam down, and the dazzling golden light suddenly fell on his body. Bang! It hit hard, but the sound was not loud. Because all the immortal power in the immortal soul hammer will only be used on the immortal soul of Lianzhen Immortal Lord. Crack! The immortal soul shattered, and Lianzhen Immortal Lord fell backwards in disbelief, his body weightless, and floated backwards in the chaotic void. No, it's impossible, you are the golden immortal, you are just. The immortal soul collapsed, and an inexplicable force appeared in the chaos, smashing the remaining soul to pieces. Only the time immortal weapon of Lianzhen Immortal Lord was left. The immortal weapon had no owner, but the immortal had self-awareness, and immediately flashed through the light and wanted to escape. Oh, want to escape. Zhu Yun's heart moved, and he held the immortal mirror in his hand, and his hand controlled the immortal power, like throwing a flying disc. Space law, suck it in for me. Zhu Yun wanted to shoot down the time immortal weapon, but he suddenly had an idea in his mind. If he sucked it in with the reverse side of the immortal mirror, then this immortal weapon could be his own. How can the immortal weapon of the immortal Lord Lianzhen be an ordinary one? Moreover, this can use the law of time. Under Zhu Yun's control, the immortal mirror lived up to expectations. It was facing up and the back was facing down, just flying over the top of the immortal weapon of time. The next moment, a strong suction force was generated on the back, directly sucking the immortal weapon of time into it. Then, the immortal mirror disappeared suddenly, as if Zhu Yun used the chaos escape technique. When it reappeared, it was already floating above his chest. What a good mirror! Zhu Yun smiled slightly, and then looked at the entrance of chaos. There was no one guarding there. Warm reminder, if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us, we will deal with it as soon as possible, thank you for your understanding. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1762. If Immortal Lord Lianzhen breaks into the chaos, he will naturally be blocked by these Lucian immortals. But in fact, they didn't even have the power to stop them at all, so they were trapped in the long river of time. It cannot be said that he is dead, it can only be said that he is lost in it. Zhu Yun chuckled and said to himself, it helped me solve a problem. He came out of the entrance and saw a transparent but clearly separated layer of immortal power. Several Lucian immortals were among them, their expressions changing. Sometimes confused, sometimes fierce. Are you experiencing all kinds of things in life? Zuyun shook his head and looked at the snowflakes in the sky. Inside the chaos and outside the chaos are simply two worlds. There is only one entrance, and the chaos is extremely peaceful. But in the land belonging to the Mayan Bay Fairy Kingdom, because of the chaos power gushing out from inside, it condenses into snow in the Mayan Bay Fairy Kingdom. These are chaos immortal snow, and they are also the purest form of chaos power. Mayan Bay Fairy Kingdom has a long history, and it revolves around the fairy world, so, does the entrance to chaos also follow Mayan Bay Fairy Kingdom? Zuyun thought for a while, then ignored it and looked down cautiously. It seems that nothing has changed in Mayan Bay Fairy Kingdom. By the way, I am Xianxia now. No one else would have thought of it. Why don't I change my appearance so that I can deceive everyone and go find Qiniang? Zuyun's heart moved. Facing Xianxia, he stretched out his finger as a pen and drew a sky talisman. With the power of the Chaos Immortal, the heavenly talisman quickly took shape, and Zuyun also changed himself into Yezi's appearance. The reason why he changed to Yezi's face was because of several considerations. When Yezi came to the fairy land in the future, he had an ordinary face, so most people would not notice him. Secondly, Sun Qiniang recognized Yezi in the memory belonging to Jian Tianming. Then, Zuyun carefully fell along the fairy snow, and finally stepped on the snow. After a little bit of direction, Zuyun rushed towards the ice cave. The fairy snow never stopped, and there was no danger along the way. But after arriving at the ice cave, Zuyun found that there was no human habitation in the ice cave. Where are the people? Where have all the people here gone? He took a look and saw that all traces had been naturally erased. It's impossible to tell where these people have gone. That's not right. I have captured the 5 elements loose immortal in the chaos and handed it over to Lin Zhenghong. Even if I take him to refine the elixir, there is no need. Is it Ximen Yuanqing? That's not right. Although he cooperates with the 5 elements immortal, Mayan Bay Immortal Kingdom belongs to the 5 elements immortal, so he doesn't need to arrest people to refine the 5 elements immortal pill. That could mean, Xiaoqian rebelled. After much deliberation, Zuyun still felt that this possibility was very small. Unless, Ximen Yuanqing left here, and the news of the capture of 5 elements loose immortal became known to everyone in Mayan Bay Immortal Kingdom. In addition, Xiaoqian also needs to be the strongest person in the Mayan Bay Fairy Kingdom to have this possibility. However, from the beginning to the end, Xiaoqian just wanted to leave the Mayan Bay Immortal Kingdom and escape from the control of the 5 elements loose immortals. Wouldn't this be unnecessary? No matter what Zuyun thought, he couldn't think of the reason. No, we have to find Qiniang. His eyes narrowed and he made a decision. Now that he has become the Luo Jingxian, he actually has the power to fight against Luo Tianshangxian. As long as you are not surrounded by a group of Luo Tianshangxian. However, now that I have the chaos escape technique, I can easily get out of the way even if I am not in the chaos. Moreover, the rules he has learned are many and refined, and with this fairy land in hand, he has enough confidence. Thinking of this, Zuyun headed towards the Immortal Kingdom Palace. Not long after, he encountered 3 patrols of Luo Jingxian. Seeing Zuyun, a stranger, the 3 Luo Jingxian's faces darkened and they came to greet him. Fellow Immortal, you are very strange. Where did you come from? Why do you want to go to the palace of our Mayan Bay Immortal Kingdom? It seemed that he was asking politely, but in fact, Zuyun saw that the 3 of them were preparing to take action. Zuyun chuckled and suddenly put his hand on his chest. Through his clothes, his hand was already on the front of the fairy mirror. Luo Jingxian no longer poses a threat to him. Why not try some of the time magic you just experienced? The 3 of them didn't know what Zuyun was thinking, but they were slightly stunned when they saw him smiling. But at this moment, Zuyun opened his mouth and spit out 4 words. Time stands still.
Suddenly, 3 laws of time emerged from his chest, and they wound towards the 3 of them. The 3 Xianxian didn't react in time at all, they just stood there blankly. Although he is obviously alive, he is as motionless as a dead corpse. Is it so useful? Zuyun was also a little surprised. Although he had experienced it personally, at that time, it was suddenly lifted. He didn't know the reason. Is it the relationship with the immortal Lord Lianzhen, or is it the reason why I have the immortal mirror in my possession? Why don't you think about it now? Zuyun chuckled lightly, but instead of stepping forward, he used the divine eye technique. Suddenly, he saw an unbelievable scene. He was originally staring at one of the great Xianxian, and he just wanted to see the effect of the law of time on him. But he didn't expect that it was as if he had entered this body. The scene in front of me changed, and the place I saw was a lower realm. Zuyun couldn't move, but just saw what the golden immortal saw, and understood his life experience. From the moment he was born, to growing up as a teenager, and then meeting the immortal fate and becoming a cultivator. After thousands of years, he ascended to the immortal world. In the Huazheng Pond, in the immortal realm, there were immortal fates again and again, and dangers again and again. In the end, he became an immortal soldier of the Mayanbei immortal kingdom. Until Zuyun saw himself in his eyes, he was shocked and his consciousness returned to his body. It was like a lifetime ago. These thousands of years, tens of thousands of years of experience, but in fact, they were in Zuyun's glimpse. Is this, a glance of 10,000 years? Zuyun was also amazed, and suddenly he had a little understanding of the law of time. His divine eye formula has dissipated. And the vitality of this golden immortal has also dissipated. It's like going through a new life, he has exhausted all his lifespan. But for Zuyun, the initiator, only a breath has passed. Is this the power of the law of time? Zuyun retracted his gaze and looked at the golden immortals on both sides of him again. They had died without knowing it. But their immortal bodies were intact. Could it be that just now, their immortal souls were reborn? Zuyun shook his head and continued to move forward. After his body passed by them, the power of the law that trapped the 3 people suddenly dissipated. And the immortal bodies of these 3 people also suddenly disappeared. It was as if they had never appeared. Zuyun's footsteps also suddenly stopped. Time stillness is so powerful, then, what about the long river of time? I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1763. The first time Zuyun learned about the long river of time was from Menghui's mouth. At that time, Menghui said that if she really died, then Zuyun could fish her out of the river of time. Of course, this also requires Zuyun's understanding of the law to reach a certain level and sufficient immortal power. But Zuyun didn't know what level he had to go to, but he vaguely felt that the longer time passed, the harder it would be to fish people out of the river. But, all this is my own idea. You will know if it works or not until you give it a try. Zuyun turned around and looked at the place where the 3 Deluo golden immortals disappeared, thoughtfully. Fairy snow continues to fall. At first, when the fairy snow fell on him, it would turn into chaos power, which would be naturally absorbed by Zuyun, and then refined through the chaos power. But gradually, as his body became full of immortal power, the snow melted slowly. For a long time, Zuyun was buried in the snow. And he was like a snowman. I don't know how much time passed. The pile of snow moved. Zuyun woke up. The river of time never uses the laws of time alone. In fact, it also contains the laws of space. Since it is called a river, it must be in a space. Therefore, it should be called the river of time and space. As soon as the words fell, all the fairy snow fell from Zuyun's body to the ground. He smiled slightly, stretched out his hand to grab the air, and softly uttered 4 words in his mouth. The long river of time and space. As his hand passed here, an incredible scene suddenly appeared between his palms. Although, it is also snowing. It can be clearly seen that the translucent fairy power pulled out is incompatible with the surrounding environment. The fairy snow in the sky will suddenly disappear when it falls here. It will not enter the long river of time and space. But it will suddenly appear at the bottom of the long river of time and space. And in the long river of time and space. It's snowing there too. However, you can't see where the snow comes from or where it falls. The only thing that can be determined is that the snow comes from top to bottom. I seem to have stood for a whole day. However, my immortal power should be enough to support this long river of time and space for a whole day, right? This was his newly realized magic, and it contained the laws of time and space, which consumed him greatly. But fortunately, Zuyun is here, and the chaos power in his body will independently absorb the fairy power after the chaos fairy snow melts. In the immortal mansion, the dragon suppressing stone is also constantly transforming its original power into chaos immortal power, which he can use at any time. Now, Zuyun's chest was shining with light. 2 halos of light passed through the clothes, sometimes intertwining and sometimes separated. Because Zuyun used the fairy mirror to use the long river of time and space. The 2 halos also represent time and space respectively. But if used at the same time, it will naturally be time and space. Suddenly, in this long river of time and space, 3 figures appeared. Zuyun could only see their expressions changing, but he couldn't hear what they were saying. Every movement, no matter how small, will fall in Zuyun's eyes. The next step is to recruit people. These 3 people are the 3 Xianxian who died earlier. Zuyun chuckled lightly. He didn't care how he fished it out, he just concentrated the immortal power in his hand and suddenly stretched it into the long river of time and space. When he felt a touch in his hand, Zuyun quickly retracted his hand. There were thin beads of sweat on his forehead. To his surprise, this action and the consumption of spiritual energy actually made him feel the wilting of the chaos lotus in an instant. If it weren't for the support of the immortal mansion, he might not have enough chaos immortal power. Who caught me? Suddenly, a familiar sound of panic came to my ears. I saw the Xianxian standing there with fear on his face. Weren't you in front of us? Why are you standing here again? For this immortal Tian, this is an incredible scene. In the original river of time, Zuyun should have been standing in another direction. But at this time, everything is so weird. He couldn't see why Zuyun was standing here. What's more, he couldn't see why his companion was gone. Did it disappear out of thin air? But he clearly felt that someone pulled him out from somewhere, and then his eyes flashed. Zuyun chuckled and said, "Is it weird that I'm standing here?" Zhu Dazhuang. Xianxian's face changed drastically. How did you know? My name is Zhu Dazhuang. How could he not be surprised? This is his nickname. It was his name before he came out of the mortal mountain village. Later, he met a fairy and became a monk. An immortal master respected by thousands of people, this name is so embarrassing. So, he changed his name. Not only do I know your name is Zhu Dazhuang, I also know what you have experienced since you were a child. Zuyun smiled. Although he consumes a lot. But this time, using the river of time and space gave him a new understanding. It will be much easier to recruit people later. No, it's impossible, this is fake, this is all fake. Zhu Dazhuang was so frightened that he backed away repeatedly. All of this is so weird. It can also be said to be a lie. Zuyun tilted his head and said, "Actually, you were already dead." "Am I dead?" Zhu Dazhuang was stunned, and then his eyes were fixed. "Don't play tricks. I'll kill you." He suddenly raised his magic weapon and smashed it towards Zuyun. Het. Zhu Yun laughed contemptuously, and his figure flashed. The next moment, he grabbed Zhu Dazhuang's neck with one hand. The long river of time and space had dissipated when he pulled Zhu Dazhuang out. Because Zhu Yun was unable to continue. But dealing with Zhu Dazhuang at this time, there was no pressure. Zhu Dazhuang's move missed. Zhu Yun also uttered 4 words lightly. Time stops. Zhu Dazhuang stopped suddenly. Moving. He couldn't see anything. Or he needed to experience a new life. But Zhu Yun was no longer interested. He turned around, and Zhu Dazhuang disappeared again. The person who should have died. With a sigh, Zhu Yun looked at his hand. When the chaotic fairy power in his body recovered, the chaotic lotus bloomed again. Zhu Yun turned around and walked towards the ice cave. It might be a bit difficult for him to rescue people in the long river of time and space. But if he looks at what happened in the past, it won't be a problem. Instead of looking for Sun Qinyang aimlessly, it's better to go to the ice cave to see what happened there. But not long after Zhu Yun left, a Lucian immortal appeared here. Strange, I clearly felt the laws of time and space. But where are the people? And where are the 3 patrol guards? I can't even feel their immortal souls at all. The Lucian immortal looked around and left without finding anything. But after returning to the imperial city, he ordered everyone to be on guard. At this time, Zhu Yun also stood in the ice cave. He still wanted to use the long river of time and space. But suddenly, he had an idea and uttered 4 different words. Time and space flow backwards. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1764. The first time Zhu Yun learned about the long river of time was from Menghui's mouth. At that time, Menghui said that if she really died, then Zhu Yun could fish her out of the river of time. Of course, this also requires Zhu Yun's understanding of the law to reach a certain level and sufficient immortal power. But Zhu Yun didn't know what level he had to go to, but he vaguely felt that the longer time passed, the harder it would be to fish people out of the river. But, all this is my own idea. You will know if it works or not until you give it a try. Zhu Yun turned around and looked at the place where the 3 Deluo golden immortals disappeared, thoughtfully. Fairy snow continues to fall. At first, when the fairy snow fell on him, it would turn into chaos power, which would be naturally absorbed by Zhu Yun, and then refined through the chaos power. But gradually, as his body became full of immortal power, the snow melted slowly. For a long time, Zhu Yun was buried in the snow. And he was like a snowman. I don't know how much time passed. The pile of snow moved. Zhu Yun woke up. The river of time never uses the laws of time alone. In fact, it also contains the laws of space. Since it is called a river, it must be in a space. Therefore, it should be called the river of time and space. As soon as the words fell, all the fairy snow fell from Zhu Yun's body to the ground. He smiled slightly, stretched out his hand to grab the air, and softly uttered 4 words in his mouth. The long river of time and space. As his hand passed here, an incredible scene suddenly appeared between his palms. Although, it is also snowing. It can be clearly seen that the translucent fairy power pulled out is incompatible with the surrounding environment. The fairy snow in the sky will suddenly disappear when it falls here. It will not enter the long river of time and space. But it will suddenly appear at the bottom of the long river of time and space. And in the long river of time and space. It's snowing there too. However, you can't see where the snow comes from or where it falls. The only thing that can be determined is that the snow comes from top to bottom. I seem to have stood for a whole day. However,
My immortal power should be enough to support this long river of time and space for a whole day, right? This was his newly realized magic, and it contained the laws of time and space, which consumed him greatly. But fortunately, Zuyun is here, and the chaos power in his body will independently absorb the fairy power after the chaos fairy snow melts. In the immortal mansion, the dragon suppressing stone is also constantly transforming its original power into chaos immortal power, which he can use at any time. Now, Zuyun's chest was shining with light. Two halos of light passed through the clothes, sometimes intertwining and sometimes separated. Because Zuyun used the fairy mirror to use the long river of time and space. The two halos also represent time and space respectively. But if used at the same time, it will naturally be time and space. Suddenly, in this long river of time and space, three figures appeared. Zuyun could only see their expressions changing, but he couldn't hear what they were saying. Every movement, no matter how small, will fall in Zuyun's eyes. The next step is to recruit people. These three people are the three Xianxian who died earlier. Zuyun chuckled lightly. He didn't care how he fished it out, he just concentrated the immortal power in his hand and suddenly stretched it into the long river of time and space. When he felt a touch in his hand, Zuyun quickly retracted his hand. There were thin beads of sweat on his forehead. To his surprise, this action and the consumption of spiritual energy actually made him feel the wilting of the chaos lotus in an instant. If it weren't for the support of the immortal mansion, he might not have enough chaos immortal power. Who caught me? Suddenly, a familiar sound of panic came to my ears. I saw the Xianxian standing there with fear on his face. Weren't you in front of us? Why are you standing here again? For this immortal Luo Tian, this is an incredible scene. In the original river of time, Zuyun should have been standing in another direction. But at this time, everything is so weird. He couldn't see why Zuyun was standing here. What's more, he couldn't see why his companion was gone. Did it disappear out of thin air? But he clearly felt that someone pulled him out from somewhere, and then his eyes flashed. Zuyun chuckled and said, "Is it weird that I'm standing here?" Zhu Dazhuang. Xianxian's face changed drastically. How did you know? My name is Zhu Dazhuang. How could he not be surprised? This is his nickname. It was his name before he came out of the mortal mountain village. Later, he met a fairy and became a monk. An immortal master respected by thousands of people, this name is so embarrassing. So, he changed his name. Not only do I know your name is Zhu Dazhuang, I also know what you have experienced since you were a child. Zuyun smiled. Although he consumes a lot. But this time, using the river of time and space gave him a new understanding. It will be much easier to recruit people later. No, it's impossible, this is fake, this is all fake. Zhu Dazhuang was so frightened that he backed away repeatedly. All of this is so weird. It can also be said to be a lie. Zuyun tilted his head and said, "Actually, you were already dead." "Am I dead?" Zhu Dazhuang was stunned, and then his eyes were fixed. "Don't play tricks. I'll kill you." He suddenly raised his magic weapon and smashed it towards Zuyun. "Heh." Zuyun laughed contemptuously, and his figure flashed. The next moment, he grabbed Zhu Dazhuang's neck with one hand. The long river of time and space had dissipated when he pulled Zhu Dazhuang out. Because Zuyun was unable to continue. But dealing with Zhu Dazhuang at this time, there was no pressure. Zhu Dazhuang's move missed. Zuyun also uttered 4 words lightly. Time stops. Zhu Dazhuang stopped suddenly. Moving. He couldn't see anything. Or he needed to experience a new life. But Zuyun was no longer interested. He turned around, and Zhu Dazhuang disappeared again. The person who should have died. With a sigh, Zuyun looked at his hand.
When the chaotic fairy power in his body recovered, the chaotic lotus bloomed again. Zuyun turned around and walked towards the ice cave. It might be a bit difficult for him to rescue people in the long river of time and space. But if he looks at what happened in the past, it won't be a problem. Instead of looking for Sun Qiniang aimlessly, it's better to go to the ice cave to see what happened there. But not long after Zuyun left, a Lucian immortal appeared here. Strange, I clearly felt the laws of time and space. But where are the people? And where are the 3 patrol guards? I can't even feel their immortal souls at all. The Lucian immortal looked around and left without finding anything. But after returning to the imperial city, he ordered everyone to be on guard. At this time, Zuyun also stood in the ice cave. He still wanted to use the long river of time and space. But suddenly, he had an idea and uttered 4 different words. Time and space flow backwards. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzhuan Xianxia. Chapter 1765. He doesn't need to fish for people in the long river of time and space. Because I don't know if something happened to Sun Qiniang. If nothing happened and he fished out another Sun Qiniang, no one knew what the consequences would be. Zuyun is still cautious. At the same time, pulling people out in the long river of time and space will also consume a lot of money on him. Although he can recover his chaos immortal power very quickly now, it is not necessary at this time. As Zuyun pulled out a long river of time and space, an incompatible scene immediately appeared in front of him. Although they are both in an ice cave, it is obvious that the wind is blowing and the snow is blowing outside the cave. The ice in the ice cave is also transformed from the fairy snow floating in from outside. So in the long river of time flowing backward, it is naturally the opposite. Zuyun looked at it for a long time. There has been no sign of anyone. But just looking at it like this didn't consume much, so he wasn't in a hurry. But he still accelerated the speed of time reversal. Finally, it has been flowing backward in the long river for more than a month. Zuyun saw a few familiar faces and entered the ice cave from the outside backwards. There was no sound, Zuyun just saw a little anxiety on their faces. After another moment, they saw Sun Qiniang covered in blood again, being carried back into the ice cave by several other people. Qiniang is injured. Zuyun was shocked. Was it Ximan Yuenking's doing? Impossible. He shook his head. After Ximan Yuanqing arranged the immortal Luo Tian at the entrance of chaos, he naturally felt that everything was safe. And after there are no 5 elements loose immortals in the Mayan Bay Immortal Kingdom, he will definitely return to the Western Immortal Realm. But now, there is obviously no Immortal Lord in the Mayan Bay Immortal Kingdom, and Ximan Yuanqing has naturally not returned yet. But who is going to attack an inconspicuous person like Sun Qiniang? While Zuyun was deep in thought, time had gone back for a long time, and Sun Qiniang had been recovering from her injuries in the ice cave. In the past half-month, another change occurred in the ice cave. This time it was Sun Qiniang who was carried out of the cave. That should have been before she was injured. If she was injured in the ice cave, maybe she could see who hurt her. Zuyun's eyes burst into anger. But just as he braced himself to watch, there was some strange noise coming from outside the ice cave, in the snowy sky. Someone is coming. Zuyun's expression changed, he waved his hand to remove the river of time and space, and then held his breath and hid behind an icicle in the ice cave. Chi! Someone fell outside the ice cave, and Zuyun didn't dare to step out. A figure slowly walked into the ice cave. Feeling a familiar breath, Zuyun frowned. Xianxia? He is Luo Tian Xianxian and the strongest person under 5 elements Xianxian. Of course, this is what Zuyun decided. Although he may appear to be just an alchemy-making immortal, Xianxia is practicing the law of 3 talents. This is no weaker than the law of Lianji and Force Yang's. Zuyun, is that you? Xianxia didn't look carefully, or even use his immortal sense to sense it, but he guessed Zuyun. Master Zhao, yes, it's me. Zuyun's heart moved, and a figure emerged from behind the icicle. You escaped from the chaos? Where is the immortal lord? Zhao Qianke looked strange, but asked Zuyun in a calm tone. The immortal lord has been captured. Doesn't Master Zhao know that? Zuyun felt that the other party seemed a little unfamiliar with him, and naturally his tone became colder. No wonder Immortal Emperor Ximen also ran away. Zhao Qianke thought for a moment and said, then Zuyun, have you found the little black tower? Zuyun shook his head and said, no, the chaos is so big, and as soon as I entered the chaos, I was chased by the 5 elements Luce Immortal and Ximen Immortal Emperor, and I finally escaped from it. Really? Zhao Qianke obviously didn't believe it. He shook his head and then asked, but if you didn't have the black tower, how did you escape the obstruction of these Luo Tianxian? He looked at Zuyun again and said, although you are now the great Luo Golden Immortal, so many Luo Tian Immortals suddenly disappeared, I think it was you. Zhao Qianke would not have thought so originally. But previously, Zuyun repeatedly tested the time-forbidden magic in the snow, causing 3 patrolmen to disappear out of thin air. Just like the fate of some Lucian immortals at the entrance to chaos. Before he came to this ice cave, he went to the chaos entrance to have a look. It turned out to be empty. Only then did Zuyun become suspicious. After all, Ximen Yuanqing left alone. The chaos loose immortal was nowhere to be found. He had to make sure. Zuyun's heart moved. It seemed that Zhao Qianke didn't know that immortal Lord Lian Zhen had arrived in Mayanbei Immortal Kingdom. Judging from his reaction at this time, it was obvious that the disappearance of immortal Luo Tian and the fate of those patrollers were all his fault. Master Zhao, I don't need to lie to you. I don't know where those Luo Tian immortals went, so they escaped from the chaos. Maybe, the Western Immortal Emperor recalled them. Humph. Zhao Qianke took a step forward and snorted coldly, the Immortal Emperor of the West is here to find the Immortal Emperor of the East. Do you think it is necessary for him to call people back? There were some words that Zuyun couldn't explain, so he simply said, so Mr. Zhao, insist on thinking that I, Zuyun, found the Black Little Tower, and then used the Black Little Tower to kill those Lucian immortals. I didn't say that, Zhao Qianke said, although the Black Tower may be a supreme immortal weapon, if it were you, it would not be so easy to deal with Luo Tian Xianxian. But as far as I know, there is a space in the Black Tower that can take people in and trap them. Maybe you trapped them. Zuyun smiled. Lord Zhao, you think too highly of me. The Black Tower may still be in the chaos, but I didn't find it. How long did it take me to go to the chaos? It's good enough to come out? On the contrary. Zuyun wanted to ask Zhao Qianke about Sun Qinyang's situation, but he didn't expect Zhao Qianke to suddenly come up and press his huge immortal consciousness towards Zuyun. Zuyun, Sun Qinyang has let it slip that it is the demon refining tower. Do you think I don't know? Even she said the name of the Black Tower through my description, and you are pretending not to know here. Hearing this, Zuyun suddenly realized. It seems that Sun Qinyang was most likely injured by Zhao Qianke. And he naturally got the situation of the demon refining tower. No wonder he was so sure. In the ice cave, fairy light came, and Zuyun's face was stern. He didn't know Zhao Qianke's true strength, so he didn't dare to deal with him. But he chose to avoid the edge for the time being. Chaos escape technique. The next moment, Zuyun left the ice cave and appeared in the fairy snow. Immediately afterwards, he quickly took out a few pieces of top-grade fairy crystals and sprinkled them at the entrance of the ice cave. The 9-turn 9-yang fairy formation sealed the entrance of the cave.